Thank you, sweetheart. So if we've got a hand up, let's just go ahead and see who we've got to talk to.
All right. It's area code 765. You are on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
This is Sunny.
Many moons ago, Indianapolis.
Yes. Yes. Reverend Jane. And,
yes. Yeah, we haven't heard your voice in probably, golly, I don't know, 7 years? You've disappeared?
If it's been that long, but it's been a minute, yes. Every bit of 4 or 5,
It's been pretty
I believe.
close. Yeah, well,
it's been a while.
Welcome back. What's on your mind? What's happening in your world? What do we owe this call to?
Well, you've crossed my mind so many times most recently as the changes are going on in our world. I've been very instrumental on a Telegram channel and holding the space for folks out there in the hubbub of it all. And your name, and I share your wisdom to the best of my capability. And I have read the commitment aloud to dispel many misunderstandings, to help offer clarity to the room between people. And I cannot ever probably thank you enough for everything that you have been in the world. I lost my professor.
Started, you know.
Yes, lost my professor 2 years ago. Yes, I know. The work has just begun because people are so much more receptive and can hear us now. And, my Reams practitioner, he would be delighted if he were still here with us. He's been gone 2 years now. And we just have to honor those folks who have come and gone.
Could be cool if Gary Reams were around.
Oh, yes, yes.
Would love to hang out with him again. That was a different world.
Their energy is, I really feel their energy is still with us. You know, they've left their impression in this world, and there's just joy.
I don't know whether I ever shared this with you. I probably did, but it's been so many years. Way back, well, one of the years when I keynoted at a conference called Global Science out in Denver, Colorado, was the year that Carrie died. And I actually they asked me to do his eulogy aside from my keynote presentation. So that was kind of, that's like, geez, that's, I mean, he's been gone, what, 30 years? It's got to be 30 years ago.
Yes, and I met my professor, one of his primary students, like 6 months after Carrie's passing. And because I wanted to meet him, I asked my teacher, I said, could I ever meet your teacher? And he said, I'm very sorry, but we lost him about 6 months ago. So I was 17 when I met my professor. So it's been a minute ago, right?
A minute, at least.
Yeah. But they're all being honored, those who have gone before us. And you and Jeannie have, wow, and thank you, eternally thank you for being what you still are after all these years, never swaying, never budging, never consistency of knowing your purpose and rocking it out. You're beautiful, and the world needs more of it, and thank you for making sure that gets to happen, getting more of that out in the world. So,
cool.
And I had just...
But did you call with a particular question in mind? Or?
No, just this huge
anything
devotional...
in particular going on?
No, truly. I would imagine in a regulatory speech conversation, you would find something for me. There are people out there making their best effort, and I wondered about the radio show, again, any changes. I'm glad I called you and connected on the phone as to how to make you more available to the world, what the best source would be. And apparently it's this radio show.
All of the above. One of the things we're currently working on is building our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and type in Michael Rice, you'll come to our YouTube channel. There are a couple hundred videos there. And we're working on, actually, we've got about more than 5,000 radio shows now in the archives. We're in our 14th year of 5 days a week. And we were looking for people to support us who are willing to convert. The radio show is an audio file, and to go on YouTube, it has to be an MP4, which is a video format, although you can put an audio on without the video. And so we're looking for folks who might support us in doing some converting, putting them on their computers, converting it to an MP4, breaking up the 2-hour workshop or the 2-hour show and cutting into 2 separate hours, and then converting it to MP4s. So that's one of the other things we're doing to build our YouTube channel, and we're also doing a bunch of shorts and intensives online. We've got a self-study codependence intensive now. It's just, everything we can do. We're not traveling anymore. About 5 years ago, Jeannie's dad became ill, and we chose to come here to take care of him. He really didn't want to leave his home. And about the same time that happened, we had a new granddaughter who's now, in August she'll be 6, and we raise her 3 days a week. So we're homebodies. We don't travel anymore, or at least rarely, actually. The first workshop series I've done in 5 years, travel workshop, is actually going to be the first weekend in May. I'm going to be in Sarasota, Florida, the medical center there, doing a 3-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday workshop series. So that's kind of the skinny on it. That's what's happening.
Beautiful.
But if you'd put our YouTube channel out, that'd be awesome. If you know anybody that would like to volunteer and assist, has got a computer we can give instructions for how to edit an audio file and then post it for us or send it over to us, and we'll get it uploaded to our YouTube channel and expanding in that regard. And so, and of course we've got a self-study intensive. I'm now actually just recently started doing 3-day one-on-one personal intensives. Actually, it's turning into 3-day plus. We've got one gentleman that's planning to come up from Sweden. Since he's coming so far, he's going to do a 6-day. But just doing one-on-one, face-to-face intensive. People come to here to Bristol, Virginia, and do a 3-day super intensive, quantum still point intensive. So that's kind of the long and short of what's happening.
Okay. Actually, intuitively or otherwise, it just referred this sweet soul to your YouTube links. And
cool.
I'm very interested in hearing what the other callers have to say, and I'm going to listen and enjoy the show to the best of my ability. I'm on my phone I don't have computers, just the phone. Unless it rings, Michael, I am looking forward to enjoying the show today and further conversation. If we can do that one-on-one for some options of the things of which you speak, I may be able to assist you and help you, connect you to some people there, and discuss with you the possibility.
We're here to have the conversation.
I would love the possibility of you and Jeannie guesting on my Telegram channel on a Saturday afternoon. That would be
open to that.
Such an honor, and actually growing your audience as well and finding the support systems you need to keep on doing what you've been doing almost all my life and more. Yes.
Yeah.
I love you.
It's interesting, of all the places over the last 50 years that I've spoken different, especially unity centers, I still carry one minister's picture in my billfold. Guess who?
Dr. Raines.
St. Jane.
St.
No, St. Jane. Lady Jane.
Y'all, Lady Jane.
She is such a sweetheart. Yeah.
She is. And she's
so I keep her vibration with me all the time and communicate with her regularly. Pull her every once in a while and say hello and how are you doing, young lady? So
yeah, she's been hanging out. And I just had to come to I was like, okay, I'm calling Michael. It's just, he's there, it's there, she's there, and these people need you. They need us. They need all the hearts and minds that are learning from you to do the best they can, as I do with anything you've ever imparted onto us. and keeping your torch lit. I love you guys very, very much.
Cool. Cool.
All right.
All right.
We
well,
will
you
do,
have a blessed
we will
one.
do more yet. Okay. Very good.
All right. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
You too.
Small world. Interesting how circle in and around and back and forth, and it's always fun to hear what people do with the tools when they pick them up and put them to work. We've actually got a medical doctor here who, when we first came to Bristol, he's an alternative physician, and when we first came here and connected with him, he was like, "Oh, I know about your work. You do forgiveness work, oh, Aramaic forgiveness work." Oh, well, yes. Oh, well, Lady Jane was the one that had introduced him years before. So it's interesting to see how things just move around and get around. Round, round, get around. I get around. So welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're with us. Honored that we get to move this conversation forward. I hope that the reading that I did yesterday from this new article on what needs to be done to heal the conflict in the Middle East, and of course not just the conflict in the Middle East, but the conflicts throughout, literally, every family system, every community throughout the world. You know, for me, in doing the research on that article, one of you've heard me on the radio show for years talk about how insane war is, and the idea that war is just a racket, it's just a money-making thing. And I used to quote, there was a piece of research that Jeannie came up with when she was doing her degree in psychology, and this goes back. Gee, Jeannie, how long have you been out of school now? 10 years, 12 years, something like that?
I graduated in 2013.
2013, so 10 years, going on 11. Anyway, she came up with a piece of data back then that said that in the 75 years previous, there had been about 175 million people killed in war. And as I read yesterday in that article I was writing, I was doing some other research, and there's a group in Canada, and it still boggles my mind. When I first read it, I was just in tears. But it boggled my mind to read that from 3600 to 1974, that this Canadian group that studies peace and war had come up with an estimate of 2 billion people being murdered in war. How many people on the planet do you suppose need forgiveness? And I'm not talking about how many people do you suppose need to be let off the hook. That's a whole fake fraud conversation. People who drive around with these bumper stickers on their car saying, "I've been forgiven." Let's talk, because you don't know, you don't have a clue what forgiveness means. The Greeks came along and totally bastardized the concept of forgiveness, turned it upside down, inside out, on its head. That's why there's still so much conflict in the world. Forgiveness has got nothing to do with the Greek story that, well, you know, it's all their fault. And when somebody says something somebody else's fault or their own fault in a blameful way, then you know that they bought into the Greek conversations. Well, you know, you did something really terrible that caused all this pain inside of me, but it's okay, I'll forgive you. I'll let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, which, of course, totally and completely means I have to hide from myself what's happening inside of me. Which means, of course, I get to do the title of my book. Why is this happening to me again? Because if it's inside of you, guess what? You're going to get to do it over and over and over again until you finally get done with it, until you forgive it And that, again, has nothing to do with letting it off the hook. Until you remove that energetic pattern from your structure, you're going to say, why is this happening to me again? Or why are they doing this to me again? Or why am I doing this to myself again? Rest assured, if somebody's telling you you have to forgive somebody else for something, do not believe them. It's a fraud. And it's a fraud that perpetrates whatever the travesty is that's occurred. And I think that's such an important thing to understand. You know, probably the greatest atrocity done to us as human beings down through the ages is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. You and I are creative beings, which, of course, is an idea that everybody loves when the creation's going well. But when the creation's not going so well, doesn't everybody have the name of the person whose fault it is? And isn't their name always them? When somebody says that, you know that they are a card-carrying member of the one world universal religion of blame. Why have 2 billion people been murdered on this planet? I mean, that number is just mind-boggling. 2 billion people. You know, what's that? Less than 6,000 years. 2 billion people. Why? Because they don't have forgiveness. And that doesn't mean they don't have somebody who's let them off the hook. They've never engaged in removing from themselves the creative patterns of trauma with which they recreate their pattern or their trauma over and over and over again. Don't believe that the Creator is ever going to forgive you for anything. And the reason the Creator is never going to forgive you for anything is the Creator has never judged you. There's nothing to be forgiven for in that sense. But if you hold a pattern that's based in some sort of hostility or fear, then you'll create the circumstance over and over and over again until you remove that pattern. And the technology of removal is called forgiveness in the first century Aramaic context. That's the primary purpose of every conversation we have in this work. And making those tools available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And so I'm going to turn back, unless you've got another hand up, Miss Jeannie.
Nope, it is all quiet.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go back to the dictionary in our Enlightenment book from the Cabour's manuscript. We've had so many conversations recently, it almost seems like we've fallen away from the Enlightenment study that we've been doing. And that, of course, we want to include in the study of that book every conversation, every kind of process that there is to have. And so that's what we've been doing, and it's stimulated so much conversation that the book has almost been left behind. But it hasn't been. It's still here. And we're on page 81 in the dictionary part of the text. And I want to look at, and if you're new to the show or you haven't been listening, what we're looking to do is to go to specific ideas from the Aramaic that helps us to build a mind structure that allows our minds to generate perceptual constructs that match what the Aramaic mind was thinking when it spoke or thought in terms of a particular set of words and ideas. And so we've been doing this now. I don't know, what are we on, Jeannie? Probably day 80 or so?
No, it's 68.
68? Oh, I was thinking we're a little further along than that. So there are, Jeannie's got a dedicated page on whyagain.org that has the links for the last 67 days of shows that we've done focused on the Enlightenment book. And so I want to go to a noun, the word makikh in Aramaic, which is humility. And this is such a major mind shift from what the culture tells us about humility. You know, basically we live in a culture that tells us, well, you just kind of grovel in the earth like a worm, you be humble. But that's got nothing to do with the mind structure that the Aramaic mind came up with when it spoke about makikh. So humility, the word just translates humility, respectful, lacking arrogance, cooperative, peaceful. And it's a concept that's a mental quality. It's a word that represents a mental quality of perceiving and cooperating with the good desires of others. That's humility. So rather than, the Greeks have taken so many words and turned them exactly backward. I don't particularly, relish mentioning him, but there was one particularly bright mind in history, a gentleman who's probably responsible for more deaths on planet Earth than any human being in history, Vladimir Lenin. And one of the things he wrote, brilliant insight, if you want to destroy a culture, change the meaning of its words. And so when you change the word humility to, act like a worm, grovel in the earth, rather than, in yourself the mental quality of being able to perceive and cooperate with the highest and best, with the good desires of others. If you just change that one idea in somebody's mind, how different are their lives going to be? Rather than going around groveling, it's going around looking for what's the highest and best in you that I can cooperate and support with. And so, and it has a dual effect. One, it allows us to really be there for another person in a way that's meaningful to that other person. Because if I can see the good desires in another and I choose to cooperate with them, that person's likely going to feel supported. And if they don't, if it's an issue in their lives of not being supported, then they're probably going to start to experience being supported. And two, if I can look for the good desires in others and there are deficiencies in my own mind, then I'm engaging in the energy of those higher energetic patterns that we would call the good desires in others. So I get to acquire new energetic patterns within my own mind. So there's a dual step forward when you understand the Aramaic idea of humility, as opposed to what is kind of presented as something supposedly positive, and that is, well, you just grovel in the earth, make nothing of yourself, pretend you have, you're not worth anything, then you're humble. I mean, just think about that one idea. A child's growing mind, and they're taught to look for the highest and best in everyone that they look at. And unless there's safety, unless there's something coming at them that they have to deal with, they can just let go of the rest. Imagine that compared to go around, put your face in the ground, put your face in the dirt, and let everybody know that you're nothing but a piece of dirt. Just kind of the Greek uptake on humility.
You have a hand?
That one word will make a mega change in somebody's life. And let's see what our caller's got to say.
It's Rex, area code 517. You're on the air. Or Mitzi.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Good morning again. Say hi, or afternoon.
Hey, young man.
Actually. I'm remembering, and I always check that when I think I'm really actually remembering something. But what I remember is the definition in the ancient Aramaic was to see the highest and best in yourself, and then to see the highest and the best in another, and join in the highest and best intentions of another. So can you speak to that, please? That's what I remember you teaching before. Has it changed, or am I misremembering?
Well, no, I think that when we talk about it in laws of living, we expand it out into examples, but technically speaking, what the scholars came up with from the Aramaic is the concept, quote, the concept is a mental quality of perceiving and cooperating with the good desires of others.
Okay.
And of course, as you start to do that, you're going to be, we would expand that out, or we've expanded that out in the conversation in laws of living too. And of course, you're going to see more of the highest, invest in yourself and others, and it's going to lead to more cooperation. It's going to lead to higher productivity in the world, and many other things if you expand that out. So I think that's what you're referring to from laws of living.
Yes, and I wondered if that in order for me to see and join in the goodness of another, I must be able to see that in myself first, to even be able to actually perceive it or witness it in them.
Right. Well, that was the other side of my explanation when I spoke of, if it's something that I'm deficient in and I'm looking for it in others, I'm going to build that very energy into myself, and that would be another benefit from having humility. So
Awesome.
it's a two-sided. I would see it as a two-sided coin. One, I'm supporting this other who perhaps has never felt supported before, so they're going to experience an uplift. And if I'm looking for that and it's a quality that I don't have, then by observing and participating in that quality in them, I get to build the brain cells in myself, and I get to move in that direction as well. So everybody gets uplifted.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, sir. Be blessed. Any other thoughts? Okay. Anybody out there with a hand up in the phone queue, sweet? Okay, then let's look a little further down the list.
Yes,
there are a few examples if you want.
I was having challenges with my mute button. Yes, we do have another hand up, and I believe it's Esther. Area code 646, you're on the air.
Hello. How are you? Thank you.
What's on your mind for today? How can we support you?
Well, I just want to change in my life, but I'm trying to go about it, but I think I'm doing it I'm not doing a good job. So, with love and finance and stuff like that.
Is there some specific question that you have that we can support you with? Something specific going on in your world that we can help uplift you with?
Yeah, I was thinking about my ex, but I was thinking about my ex.
Okay. Well, one of the things, a good starting point with that, and our culture speaks about exes very often, one of the things that we suggest that you might want to start doing is changing your perspective, and rather than Xing someone out of your life, you might start to speak of and think of your former, someone you're not currently in relationship with, but your former will tend to change the energy that you hold in yourself around your former, whether you ever see him, speak to him again or not, and also changes the mind energy that you extend out into the world in regard to someone you've been in a relationship with. So that can be a simple change of mind. If we go to the opening words in the book of John, where the Greeks tell us, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. In Aramaic, what it says is, in the beginning was, where the Greeks say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh in Aramaic, and I'm so used to saying that, it just kind of automatically went there, it was the mind energy. When we engage in mind energy, that literally, what they're showing in the cell biology laboratory, is that literally becomes chemistry in our bodies, what we call chemistry. And so just starting to change your mind around simple things like, instead of Xing someone, a former, can be a powerful place. If there are issues that you have still going on inside of you in regard to your former, then you might step into the forgiveness process and start doing some of the forgiveness worksheets around it. And that is something you can access on our website. Our website is whyagain.org. If you go there, you can actually, if you go to the site, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a link that says Start Here, and it'll explain about how to start to use the worksheet process. And you can actually do the forgiveness process right there on the site. You can download the worksheets and print them for yourself and do them in writing. And or if you go to your app store on your phone, we have the world's only forgiveness app. And to find that app, if you go to your app store, just type in 3 words, Heartland, Heartland, all one word, Heartland Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. And you'll be looking at an app that comes up with a kind of a red glowing heart on it. If you download that, then you can start to utilize the forgiveness process right there on your phone. You don't need to print it or anything. You can just do it right on your phone. And so you might start doing some worksheets around whatever issues are left over from that relationship. And as you do that, there'll be a tendency to come into possession of a cleaner, clearer mind within yourself, which, it's the root of everything, right down to and including what people call our physical chemistry. So that might be a starting point for you.
Okay.
On the website, there's also a copy of what we call My Commitment, and there are several forms of it. You can download it free, print it from the website, and there's a commitment that I speak to myself in the mirror, and that might be something to start to work with, directly with your relationship with yourself. And there's also a commitment to utilize with children, to utilize with spouses or just other folks in the world. And we have a business form of the commitment. So that's another, it's kind of like a tool that helps to guide into higher spaces in the world, has normally, led us in terms of how we develop our lives and our relationships with each other. So there are a few of the tools you might start to use.
Okay. That sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts for you today?
My mother passed, and I always wondered if I was doing a good job.
How long ago did she pass?
About 4 or 5 months now. About 4 months.
Well, holding space for you, that can certainly bring up a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. And again, that would be a place to use the worksheets. And if there were there any conflicts with your mom?
No.
No? Well, that's nice.
No.
That's nice that you were in a clean space with her.
Oh, yeah, I was a caretaker.
Ah. Well, congratulations. Pretty sweet gift to give her. A lot of children can't do that for their parents because they have too many issues to deal with. So it's pretty awesome that you're able to do that and be in a clean, clear space with her.
Oh, no.
Awesome.
When your parents turn around and had to go and sacrifice their life for you, bringing you up, make sure you was okay, and you have shelter, you have food, I couldn't be that kind of daughter.
Sweet. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Holding you in a blessing. And if you choose to do worksheets and you get started with it, if questions come up,
I'll definitely
please call and ask.
Yeah, I'll go on the website.
Okay, cool. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
All right, blessings. All righty. Bye-bye.
Blessings.
There are no other hands up. So continue.
So the next work, if we, again, we're on page 81 in the Enlightenment book, in the dictionary. Malkuta. Human judgment and behavior produced by harmony with an outside will. It is usually rendered an estate, a condition, a kingdom. Malkuta Dishmaya. So when they talk about the kingdom of heaven, they're talking about a community of love, that there's harmony, and it goes beyond just what happens within our own internal structure, and literally is the place where we connect with that, what people have called God, what people have called a higher power, and that when we choose to connect with that, when they talked in Aramaic, when they spoke about the kingdom of heaven, it was really more a community, and that was a community of connectedness, a community of love. And so when that's spoken of in the scriptures, that's really what they're talking about, that being in that space of love. And so if we go to the top of the next page, 82, Malkuta Dishmaya. Dishmaya is a noun. It's also pronounced Bishmaya. And just one second. So it's a noun where Dishmaya is a descriptive phase. Malkuta Dishmaya is rendered a heavenly estate, or a heavenly state itself, relating to an earthly life. Or Dashmaya and Beshmaya appear, kingdom of heaven, relating to a hereafter as it's employed. The distinction is necessary, but the accuracy of its application in each case is open to question. The Aramaic words include both meanings, with subtle hints as to which is the basic underlying thought, whether earthly life, life hereafter, or both, available from the phonics and context. The English words clearly distinguish between earthly life and a hereafter and cannot mean both. However, in the Aramaic text, that kind of a distinction is not justified. And so the broader context, another translation of this concept can also be the kingdom of expansion. And, when I tap into the fact that we don't have the heaven, quote-unquote, heavenly and the earthly as two separate things in Aramaic, which has been done in the Greek translations, but rather there is an expansive aspect to it. And when you think in terms of tapping into this community of love, tapping in literally in your physiology to the presence of love, and extending that love throughout your physiology to every cell in your structure, especially if there's pain somewhere within your structure, to literally tap into, some of you are familiar with the love exchange exercise that we do. And to do that exercise, what we invite people to do is close their eyes, go inside, and tap into the deepest, clearest presence of love that you can feel. Recognizing that the truth of who you are is that presence of love. And in concert with the breath, by breathing, when you tap into that presence of love, when you intensify that experience, then you can direct the energy of active love throughout your physiology, literally to every cell in your structure. And when you realize that active present love is the master solvent of the universe, and that the breath is, or can be seen as, the distribution point, And that when you direct your breath, once you've done that love exchange, and take a breath and literally imagine the breath directing that presence of love throughout your structure or anywhere throughout your world. We've spoken with this before. There's nothing we know of that can stop the high energy wave that leaves in line when we think a thought. And so tapping into that presence of love and breathing it throughout your structure and throughout the world is a powerful thing to do. And then if you look at the, you head down the page from that idea of Malkuta Dishmaya, then you see several variations as it's used throughout Matthew.
And you have another hand.
Oh, great. Cool. Let's say hello.
It is Susan, 610. You're on the air.
Hey, Michael.
Welcome, dear heart. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. You gave an example of changing a word, humility. I think every once in a while, if you could introduce a word, because I understand the concept, but I never got it the way I just got it when you said that. Seeing humility is kind of groveling. I know brain cells fire in funny ways, I suppose for all of us, but in any case, that was so perfect, and it was also perfect because my son I've been on and off the radio show. My son will call me, and I always pick up because he's having such a hard time. And one of the things he does is if he isn't being a doctor, he feels worthless and useless and thinks he shouldn't even live. And he wrote a note to his boys, which he isn't going to, I know, he isn't going to send it, he said, but it was basically, I just wanted you to know that I hope you valued me or thought me an okay person even if I stopped working as a doctor. Well, he knows darn well they adore him. But he had to put it on paper. And he even told them that he was thinking of ways that he could not be alive anymore. But he said, I won't do that because I know that would hurt you very much, but this is how bad it feels to me. He's telling them in his mind in this letter, which he isn't going to send. So one of the things I said to him, which might sound cruel, but I said, you think you're special enough in a way. It's a kind of arrogance to think the way you're thinking. It's like you're having a huge ego attack in reverse. And he said, I understand what you're saying. I understand. If I could be more humble about my life, I probably wouldn't be thinking this way. And then you talked about humility right on your radio show. And Dr. Tim on his show was talking about how we use language and this Rosenberg book, I forget the title of it already, Nonviolent Communication, which I read years ago, and you teach a much better iteration of the same thing, using much more helpful words. Anyway, synchronicity is amazing. What you are saying, and I'm listening to it, what I'm listening to with you and Dr. Tim are things I want my son to hear, but I'm hearing them, and I don't know how to translate them to him because he's not open to my ways of being well. He's amazed. He says, I can't believe you enjoy life so much. I can't believe you have no more anxiety. How did you do that? And I say, well, I use these tools. Oh, and then I've tried to use them. What's happening? I mean, the kid and I are really good friends, but is it because I'm his mother? I know I'm all over the place in what I'm saying, but I want him to use these things. The love exchange with himself in the mirror. Talk about needed and not happening. And he's working with a very old school therapist who goes through his early traumas and this and that and sort of dwells on them. And the newest thinking is that you don't want to stay there very long. You want to start building up your strength and wellness and so forth. What were you going to say, Michael?
Well, what if you sit with him and do a love exchange?
Oh, my God,
and
Michael,
encourage
I
him.
wish you were open. Yeah, I wish you were open to that sort of thing. You know.
Well, I would think if you were sitting face to face and you said, I've got an exercise I'd like to do with you. And here's what I'm going to do. Not demanding anything of him, but just here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to tap into that which brings me to the most powerful state of love that I can experience in me. And then I'm going to open my eyes and I'm going to imagine extending that love through my eyes to you. In fact, through my whole body to you. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just raise your hand and see what, if anything, you experience when I open my eyes. If you experience anything coming from me. I mean, some of the hardest intellects I've seen over the years put their hand up and they go, oh my God, are you kidding? I can actually feel that.
Wow.
That might be a simple enough thing for him to have a breakthrough. And then, once complete, whatever he shares with you that he feels or doesn't feel, do you feel anything on your face? Do you feel anything on your body? Do you feel anything on your hand? If you think about, 20 seconds before I started to do this exercise, how did you feel physically, mentally, emotionally? Do you feel any different now? Well, 90% of people go, well, now that you mention that, yeah, I do feel different. Gee, when we first started, I was feeling kind of heavy, and now I'm lighter, and gee, something shifted. So that might be, with him as a passive part of that exercise. And then, complete that and see where it goes, and if it feels appropriate, then maybe invite him to do the same. Invite him to close his eyes, tap into the deepest, clearest love that he can, and then imagine extending it through his eyes to you. Now, as you tap into that energy and send it to him, it's going to affect his physiology. And if he'll return the favor, it's going to affect his physiology on still a whole other level. That might be all the opening you need. Clearly, there is a reality in his mind that in order to be of value, he has to be doing something monumental, like an ordinary life won't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting to recognize that he has value for one single reason and one reason only. The Creator put the breath of life in him. And you might use an example of, let's say, his son. Does he have to perform in order for you to see him as valuable?
Yeah, we have had that.
Then why do you lay that burden on yourself that you have to perform in order to be seen as valuable?
Yeah. That discussion we have actually had, and there's no question that he wouldn't require anything of his boys to love them or think they're totally globally acceptable. He just won't apply it to himself.
But if you ask the question, and he can start to do some research in his mind as to why he does that to himself, you might come across the root of what it is he holds about himself that's false.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've already told you about that. He really took a blow when he wasn't taken into this talented and gifted program when he was in the 3rd grade, and all his best pals were in it. And he was a dummy. He was in the dummy group. And he has tried to prove that he's not dumb ever since. I don't know why it has such a hold on him now, but it still has.
Because a kid, 3rd grade's what, 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Is a pretty tough, impressionable place to come from. And if we look at the family pattern, and I don't know what kind of relationship, he had with Tim, but Tim's relationship with his dad, Tim's done a lot of work, shared a lot on the show over the years about his relationship with his dad and how tough that was, and chances are some of those dynamics were passed on.
Yeah.
That power person stuff. If we could get him to look at the fact that everybody's got a reality, and that this reality that he holds about himself is just false.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a way to get him to question this reality of value that he holds about himself, that might open space for a new Jonathan to show up.
Yeah. He's been doing some writing. He's trying to write to the man who's kind of the hospital administrator, who is very sympathetic, trying to put into words why he's not ready to come back and may never be ready to come back. But looking at himself, all he has said today about all that is he's been seeing a therapist who I think is not a good person for him to work with. It's an old-fashioned type therapist who says things like, well, I think your self-esteem is so connected with your work, I think you better go back to work. And he thinks that he agrees with that, and then finds that he can't do it. And he thinks he ought to go into a mental hospital. And I said, Jonathan, you are so healthy. Your body is screaming at you because you haven't been listening. That is health. Your body is telling you something you've got to look at. And until you pay attention, you're going to be very uncomfortable. So, it's too soon to go back to work, or it may never be time to go back to work. But he says his therapist is encouraging him. And anyway, Michael, I just, the love exchange thing, we'll have to get through some family cultural resistance there. Being New Englanders, not expressing ourselves that way, it would be squirm city for both of us to do it the way you suggest. But I'm going to find a way to do it.
Wouldn't that be a great place to start out with the acknowledgement of, there's been a real challenge in our family system, in the culture we have here, about expressing love that we are, and expressing that to each other, with each other. Start the conversation out acknowledging that. And here's a way that, maybe we can break some of that ice that has developed in our family system that never belonged here.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging there's an elephant in the room, and here's something we can do about it.
Yeah.
Simple. So it's not a big self-exposure. And I've seen that love exchange do some powerful things in people very quickly.
Nice.
And I've put
Go ahead, Jeannie.
I've put on the notes for today. There were also, I've got 4 other links besides our love exchange link, where there were studies done. One of them is called eye gazing benefits. One was a London exercise, Amnesty International experiment, and an eye contact study. All of them are basically the same, and they had people that were total strangers just sit down and look into each other's eyes for a minute or 3 minutes or something. And at the end of the exercise, people are hugging each other, and they're total strangers.
Well, that would be a lot easier than being family member, that's for sure.
But I've put that out there. I've put links to all that, so you know. Okay.
So acknowledge your part in it, Susan. Acknowledge your part, and that's part of our family dynamic, and it's something we need to work through, something we need to let go of.
Yep.
I remember back in the early days when my book was published, I used to go to speak at a lot of conferences, health fairs and that sort of thing. And there was a fellow who, and it was the first time I'd heard of this idea of gazing, but he had a workshop. Different presenters would have workshops, and this guy had a workshop, and he charged $25. And you went in, you sat in a chair, and he didn't say anything. He just gazed at you for, I don't know, half an hour or whatever.
Woo, yeah.
And that was his workshop.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful. And, you know,
Boy.
if it's too much in terms of breaking the family ice to even say anything, maybe just sit in the room with him and do that love exchange without saying anything even.
I could do that. In fact, I do it a lot. Anyway, just send him all my love, but he wouldn't be aware of it. Superficially, he wouldn't be aware. Is that what you're saying? I'm just doing it.
No, I'm saying that he may become very aware of it very quickly if you're focused there, and that is the energy that you're sending.
I see.
And if you've got any...
My question is, does he know, has he been told that I'm doing it? He might feel it, but if I told him I was doing that, he'd just go up to the molding and stay there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then don't tell him, just do it.
Okay.
And if he asks what's going on, I mean, you may, I mean, I've watched people whose edges soften, whose traumas melt. I mean, it's just profound what happens in the presence of active love. And we all have the ability to extend that energy and to connect because, you know, as the line in the worksheet says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. I mean, literally, you know, you're like matched tuning forks. Yours is a middle C and his is a middle C. You get it going strong enough, it's got to move in him. There's no other way it can happen. You can't hit a middle C tuning fork on the desk and put it near a second tuning fork, and that second tuning fork stands still. It can't do it.
Yeah.
So we'll be joining in holding that space with and for you and for him, and extending that energy in his direction.
Thanks. Well, and yesterday your letter, there were parts of that letter toward the beginning, not that any of it wasn't, I mean, some of it was teaching that I had heard before, but the beginning, the summary of the texts from the Old Testament that invite Israelites to kill everybody here and there. And it got me wondering, I have a friend who's a scholar of prophetic Old Testament poetry. I want to talk to her about this. The mindset, the permission to annihilate other people. We did it in our country. I was going for a walk with Tim Bingham yesterday, and his mother being Jewish, I said, Tim, do you think the Israelites in the Old Testament, that they had the right to do that? And he said, well, they did do it, and because they did it, I think they still have the right. They have the right to claim their land, no matter who else is on it. So Tim and I are walking on opposite sides of the street for a while because of that one.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, of course, someone who walks around thinking they can assault another like that has generated such an horrific assault energy within themselves that there's the very energy that will draw assault to them. You know, when the Jewish community says never enough, never again, what they're doing is setting up the literal energy. We remember we've shared with you before that I did a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop in the Holocaust Museum in Fort Lauderdale. And it was one of the most powerful workshops I've ever done. And we went strictly all the way through, right out of the Old Testament. And everybody, we ended up, I was hesitant at first, but we went through and talked about the whole Holocaust and all, and what part do we need to heal in ourselves to clean this up, to change this? Because as long as we're standing around saying never again, that's a creative act, and we're setting it up again.
Yep, totally, I agree. Well, it's 2:01, Michael.
All right, young lady.